What differentiates one camera gear manufacturer from another? The quality of cameras, lenses, accessories, lights, and every other tool that we as filmmakers use are all so good now that it's almost impossible to buy a piece of equipment that isn't good enough for almost any job you throw at it. And on top of that, many manufacturers make products that are incredibly similar that it almost makes no difference from a final output perspective which one you choose. Everyone generally makes the same products with slightly different packaging. Take lights, for example. 95% of new lights, whether they are branded as Aperture, Nanlite, Small Rig, or iFootage, companies and lights that I love and some that I own are all pretty similar. There are small differences, but the design is relatively the same. A light here, body here, a ballast here. There are differences that matter, yes, like fan noise, controls, connectivity, and the all-important price. But no matter which brand you go with, they're all going to be pretty similar. But there is one company in the lighting world that is also one of the most innovative new manufacturers, truly rethinking the design and functionality of lights. And that's these guys, ZHIYUN. Today, we're going to go through ZHIYUN's 3 main offerings in their lighting game and talk about how they are innovating and being a bit different than all the others in the lighting landscape. Let's start with this guy. This is the ZHIYUN Molus X100. And this was the first light that they put out that really turned some heads. And the main reason is because it's weird shape and size. I mean, this thing is kind of like a large phone, but it is so tiny for a 100-watt light. You'll see a lot of manufacturers putting out 60-watt lights or 100-watt lights that are sort of the standard, sort of bigger body with the light up front. And they're probably this large and this wide. But this thing is tiny. I mean, you can stick this in a bag, no problem, and take it on any shoot. I do a lot of travel branded content and documentary work, and so having something I can just slide into my bag without even thinking about it and just use with a umbrella for a really minimalistic lighting package is incredible for the type of work I do. And at 100 watts, it's actually pretty bright. The other beautiful thing about this light is it can be battery powered by USB-C, whether that's with a power bank or a V-mount. So you can run this thing for a long time on battery powers if you need to like hike into the woods or a location. The X100 is also bicolor, so you have a pretty wide color temperature range, whether you want to do daylight or tungsten. And actually all 3 of these ZHIYUN lights are bicolor, which is a great feature to have for any independent filmmaker. All right, next up we got this bad boy. This is the ZHIYUN Molus G200, and it is a 200-watt light, and as you can see, a little bit thicker than the X100, but that's because it's got way more power. So really easy to use this light in a lot of different types of scenarios. Obviously, just as a key interview light, it works just as well as any 200-watt light, but it's so small and compact that it's pretty easy to get it up high or move it around. I wasn't super excited about it because of the ballast was fairly large, and so as a combination package, it isn't that much smaller and lighter than other 200-watt lights. But since this is the actual part that goes on a light stand or on a clamp, this is the part that matters in terms of weight. And so you can mount this thing almost anywhere and then run the ballast to wherever you need to control the actual output and color temperature. Kind of like the more expensive, like 600-watt lights you're seeing from Aperture or Nanlite is all the controls are on the ballast, where on most 200-watt lights, things like Amaran and Small Rig, those controls are actually on the light itself. So once you put it on a light stand and raise it up, it's very difficult to actually access the controls. And so having something you can actually access and see is really, really, really nice to have, at eye level, hanging from your stand or wherever it is you're hanging this light. So one other pretty amazing thing about this light is though they promote it as a 200-watt light, it's actually a 300-watt light. So it has a boost mode that gives you 300 watts of brightness, which again, in a package this small, is unbelievable. Now, the only downside to this feature is that the fan noise does get pretty loud, but most manufacturers would probably just call it a 300-watt light and then, say, oh, sorry, there's fan noise. Knowing that you have the extra output when needed is really, really helpful, and again, pretty innovative in such a tiny, small package. So the ZHIYUN Fiveray M20 is similar to a lot of lights we've seen in this space. It's just a small LED that you can mount on top of a camera or just always have on hand. It has a few different really interesting features. The first is that it has a magnetic back. So if there's anything metal, like a refrigerator, you can just stick this light on it and it just goes. Thanks, ZHIYUN. And that allows this light to be put in very difficult places without actually having to take up any space. Speaking of magnets, one of the other cool things about this tiny little light is that ZHIYUN has built a little ecosystem that attaches to the front elements of this light by magnets. And so if you just want to diffuse this light a little bit for a little bit softer, it just snaps on. But then if you want to stick a grid on this diffuse light to control the spill of that light, Just snaps right on the front. And then if you want to control it even further and put on some barn doors, they have this that also just snaps on. And it's just so simple, so easy, that it's crazy that I haven't seen this done before. So hats off to ZHIYUN for a pretty darn innovative product on something that we've seen 100 times before. They somehow still managed to make something that was just a little bit different and a little bit innovative. So as all great innovators know, sometimes when you're pushing the limits and pushing the boundaries and trying to do something new, some things don't always work out great. And while these lights have all worked in almost every capacity that I've used them in, the little ZHIYUN X100 does have one issue, and I've seen this on the internet quite a bit, and it's this awesome idea that just doesn't quite execute the way you'd want it to. And that's this battery pack that goes on the side of the X100 and powers the light for up to an hour at full power, which is pretty crazy. The problem is the battery pack doesn't work. It did work for a couple months, and I used it on a few shoots where I would actually need a roving light, but then it just stopped working. It's a great idea, a great concept, innovative in a lot of ways to have it so integrated, and so hopefully they have some replacement batteries coming soon that actually do work, or on the next iteration of the X100, they have a more robust and useful battery pack. So that's a look at ZHIYUN's 3 main lights they have now and sort of the innovation that they're pushing and trying to just change the way lights are designed and made, which isn't always successful and always perfectly done, but the fact that they are pushing the envelope, that's what innovation is. And so it's exciting to see that in the camera space that is often doing sort of the same thing over and over again with camera gear. I love these ZHIYUN lights. I've used this one extensively. I'm gonna use the G200 a lot as well. And I wanna know what you think. Have you used any of these lights before? What are the pros, what are the cons? What do you like, what you don't like? And what innovations would you like to see in your lighting gear or any of your camera gear in the future? Let me know in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video. As a doc filmmaker, one of the things that you're called to do over and over again is set up a nice looking interview. And often you're going to set up a nice looking interview in a suboptimal location. So today, that's what we're gonna do.